Okay, looks like that fixed it. In case this is a break in YouTube, we're back again. Another weird blip tonight on streaming. It looks like I had to start and stop everything again, but it looks like we're good to keep going. I am winding down, I think. I am losing steam, but I think I want to go a little while longer. We were just talking about the inputs. So I kind of want to be able to hit a button to equip and unequip the skills that you have on your character. So let's take a look at the mock-up real quick. So on here, I'd like there to be one button to like hit to unequip or equip, and then like Y on a controller or something. And then I still want a confirmation button to like take you to the next screen, or maybe vice versa. Maybe A is equip and unquip, and Y is like to open the sub screen for like the abilities skill tree, which I haven't shown in a while. So let's bring that up real quick. But the idea is that once you click on like skill tree on a specific ability, you go into that tree's specific bonuses, and that will have bonuses to that character's stats that are permanent, kind of like a Final Fantasy 10 style spear grid, but the spear grid is on the individual skills of the character. So you get permanent magic and attack for leveling up that character's skills and defense and agility or whatever other things I might add. And then you also get perks for that skill as you level up its tree as well. But we need two inputs, and right now, up until now, our system has only relied on basically the back button, which is handled by the screen controller, and then the on click button, which is handled by the screen essentially. So at its core, the question is whether or not I want the input handled by the screen or whether I want it handled by the screen controller. I feel like I want it handled by the screen controller, because I almost feel like this aspect of like inputs could be pulled out into its own like screen input manager. This means that every screen would need to have another function that could be called though. So we have like this interface essentially that says these are functions that screens must implement, and then by doing that we can say like, hey, I'm calling on a screen, I want to call open. So if we have the input handled by some manager like the screen controller, then we'd need some function to be able to go like update input or something. Whereas if we just do it on open and on close, it's easier. But now all the input is managed everywhere. Everywhere manages the input. Instead of the input being managed by like one input manager, that like if you hit pause, you can't still navigate through the screens. And like the idea of pausing in a menu doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but you never know. Maybe there's a situation in which we use this menu system for something else, like the HUD or something. Maybe the HUD is also like a screen. And so maybe you pause and now you can't activate buttons on that. Yeah, I convinced myself. Okay, so I want to add to the screen like some sort of input management function. Public void process input. And that needs to take in some sort of args. Now it's going to get real mad at me because every single screen now needs to have a process input function. And if it doesn't, it's going to get real mad. So if we go back to Unity, there's going to be a bunch of complaints. But we should be able to do implement, and it should just add it to the end with a throw not implemented. These are all my screens here. Potential fixes, implement. implement. Okay. Okay, that should be all of them. Unity should stop complaining now. It has other complaints that we don't care about. Okay, so then inside of screen controller, we are going to set up another input call. So right now we have cancel set. I'm pretty sure I set up a Y press for our input system. So where does that live? Swap. I set up a button for swap, which is mildly confusing, but fine. So swap performed. Let's call it secondary button pressed. And then we're gonna do screen stack dot peak current screen, and then current screen dot process we need to get the screen in the screen stack, because there's a bunch of information we store about the current screen stack data, and then here we need process input, and for now we'll pass in null. And we're gonna just assume that this is the only way you can get here is from this, but we may eventually have more button presses, in which case we'll need to start using the args to say what type of button press it was. So then on... What now? What now? What now? Now we have to implement on this screen that when this button is pressed, we want to equip or unequip the current selected button. That's what secondary input is going to do for this one, or the process input. So we're going to do... What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Event system.current .get current selected object. Awesome. From the current selected object, we want to get component, and we're going to grab, no, we're going to get component in parent of type skill menu button. So we're going to get the skill menu button, and then we're going to grab we should be able to just get the one in this case, because the reason we do get multiples up here and in other locations and then get the first element is because we have to set it to true, but in this situation this true is saying also grab inactive objects. But anytime we would be processing the secondary input, I would imagine the object is on, so we should be safe to just grab the single component we expect to be above us. Stored data. Now stored data in this case is a ability spec. That's less helpful. because the ability spec isn't where we equip abilities. It's the unit that has a list of equipped abilities. Which makes me want to maybe rethink this, because we were running into this problem earlier when we were talking about, like, hey, we want to display the equip icon on the ability, but because the ability only has access to the ability spec doesn't know, because the unit has a list of equipped abilities. But maybe instead the unit should just have a bunch of abilities on it. Yeah, because it has a currently equipped list. But maybe instead it should just have its, like, all of its abilities, and then each of those abilities can say whether or not they're equipped or not. Because that would solve our UI problem, and it would also solve our problem right now of needing to toggle a ability on and off. We do technically still need access to more global information right now, because we also need to know whether or not we've hit our maximum number of equipables. So this thing needs access to the current unit. So when we call open, we can pass in arguments. Those arguments are, I think, generically defined as the data that was picked last. So when we call open with args, it opens a new screen with those args. So it comes from the open call. So if we look at unit select, what does this pass in? It passes in null. But instead, it could pass in the stored data of the button, which should be a unit. We do args in a very specific way. This way. I think I've got it. Okay, so in the old systems, one of these things sent the args here. This is how we send. Awesome. Okay, so we create an object called info, which takes one parameter, which is unit, and we send that info through as a generic object, and then on the other side we cast that object to an info unit, and then grab arg0, which is a unit, and set it here. And we do it this way simply because if we wanted to, this info can actually take multiple templatized types, so we could add more types through this generic object. So it seems a little weird to do it for just one, but it's consistency. Keeps things understandable. So now on process input, we can grab unit dot current equipped specs dot count. And then does the unit currently also have like a max equip? Max points, nodes, max ability, max abilities. This is the number we're looking for. So the unit also has the max abilities. So if the max abilities, if the count is less than the max abilities, is what we want to say. So, no, wrong button. I want to hit start of the line, not top of the page. If it's less than the maximum abilities, then we can say grab the current ability spec. Ability spec. The ability spec. Dot add. The ability, okay. There was another screen that Sneaky One had set up for this system that handled actually doing equipping and unequipping these things. But that system was more complicated than it currently needs to be. I might want to rewrite this system. Okay. Let's make this a toggle. So if it contains the ability spec, then we remove ability spec. Else, we add it. All right. And then when we process this input, we're going to need to update the skill equip data, which was currently updated via the unit. So after doing this, we need to call update, passing in the unit that we have stored. All right. And then we also want to update, honestly, that component. With this, I think. So it actually shows how many you have. So it'll be like 1 of 2 kind of thing. All right. And then I'm going to also opt for now, just as a quick hack, honestly, I'm going to add a new value to ability spec, which is equipped, which will be default to false. And we're going to assume that no things are equipped until it goes through the UI. Which is most likely not true. There will probably need to be some sort of default setup for default equipped abilities, but pretty happy with this for testing purposes. Now, with that is equipped, we can now go to the skill menu button, and then we can set this based off of the stored data dot equipped, which means when we process the input, we will also need to update the menu with the unit as well. Actually, don't know if that's the case, actually. This is updating all the buttons, but it's also regenerating them all. It like clears everything and recreates them. But I think I just want to call update on every button, not on the whole menu. So do I have a way to do that? Does my menu system have like an update buttons? I don't think it does. It has a refresh, which will refresh the list. But I don't think that breaks stuff. Nope, that calls refresh component. So is refresh component what I'm looking for? Huh. Okay. So the problem I'm running into, sorry, I went silent for a long time there. I think I'm running low on steam and I should probably stop streaming soon, but I'm just trying to finish this thought. Is I want to be able to update these buttons when you do stuff, but currently buttons aren't updatable because buttons aren't screen components. The menus that have buttons are screen components, but we don't want to regenerate the whole button. Like, we don't have to delete every button and re-add it, because we're also going to lose our place in the list if we do that. So we just want the UI to essentially call this populate function again, which normally this comes from the first time the button is generated. But we actually want to have this be more of a refresh component. But in order for it to be a refresh, it has to come in... No, refresh doesn't require anything. It just needs to be a screen component. Ah, okay. So this just needs to be a screen component, but being a screen component means that it needs to implement some functionality. I think this can just be a get set on initialized. The init function just needs to init with an ID, which we'll probably never use. And then refresh needs to call equip set based off of stored data as equip. Okay? Now, this menu button can be refreshed. And the menu list has a way of doing that. So if we look at here, we shouldn't call update on the skill menu, we should call refresh, and it shouldn't have to take anything. And now the button should update. Okay, the system handles it. It just took me a bit to remember how I set it up. I just need to make the button both a pooled object and a component. Okay, so then to go in, none of these things are equipped. Secondary input. It didn't like that one. Specifically because we haven't given something a reference, I think. This is missing a reference to the equip count. I think that's why it yelled, maybe? Okay, couple things. Number one, we need to modify the equip count object to, instead of looking at the old equip list, excuse me? Oh, we updated the wrong one. Oh, that's frustrating. How did I manage to pull that off? I just... Okay, it's fine. Alright, so this should be using... this value instead. This probably means I need to rework a bunch of stuff, though. So now this... Nope, seems to be fine. Everything seems okay. Hit here, we go here, we hit Y, nothing's happening. So we go into here, hit escape. Oh, because this value is wrong. This also needs to be the new thing I set up, which is that value. It was looking at the old one. Okay. Hey Kazukish, welcome to the stream. We're just winding down, FYI. We're just finishing up really one last concept here. But it's been fairly productive. We just got basically this whole screen set up. And now if I hit Y and skip the breakpoint, it's equipped. And that's equipped. And that doesn't do anything because we've got two, but we can hit... Oh, we can't unequip? Okay, so it was supposed to be a toggle. So why is it not toggling? So here... Oh, right, because if we're greater than, we just don't do anything. So instead, this logic needs to be pulled out. This needs to be here. This needs to be specifically only around the add. So only if we have room can we add. But if we have no room, we can still remove. Excellent. Okay. Cool. That was a journey. Now, technically we've gotten all of this up and running by like circumventing the existing system, which might need to be rewritten anyways and replaced with this thing, because the old system used to have basically slots that you equipped your abilities into, but I think it's just as easy to just say like it's a list and they can either be equipped or not equipped, but it's just trying stuff. So this technically doesn't work with the actual combat stuff, whereas this does, but we're figuring out the UI. So we can make it work with the combat stuff and hook it into the whole game system later. But that works. We're able to go into the skill menu, click on a character, equip a skill they have, go back out of that menu, go back to the main menu. And then we can go back in. The transitions are working as intended. There is a bit of a bug we still have with if you go too fast, you can like completely break the whole thing. But I'll look at that on my own time because we spent like half an hour on it and it just wasn't getting anywhere. The next steps after this would be to set it up so that there's actually the extra bit of information on the side, not that image, this image. So setting it up so that there's this information and the character's name on the side would be kind of the next steps. And then the steps after that would be hooking up the node screen. So when we hit enter on those things, it would actually take you here, and then you're able to navigate and start unlocking bonuses for a skill if you have SP for it. Skill points, essentially. Okay. She's not perfect, but she's getting there. We do lose the skill header, though, when we go over. Like, now there's no skill header. I don't know how I feel about that. And that's something I kind of missed when I was doing the mock-ups for the UI. But, the other big thing that would be nice, I think I'm going to do all the screens first, but the other thing I have to figure out at some point is how this integrates into the main scene. So if we look at the front end scenes folder, and then we look at the dungeon take 2, I believe. When we come into here, we're gonna need to have something that actually like opens that up. Right now we have this old menu that would appear and disappear when you would like open and close. We need to get that working for the new screen as well. Okay. Okay, I think I'm done. Amorphous, I just saw your message. I don't know if you're already gone, but good night to you. Yeah, for me, good night is the proper response or statement. I think I'm done, though. Yeah, I got more screen mock-ups I gotta build, and then I gotta figure out how to make it appear and disappear in this screen. And that's... I think that's the main next pieces. Yeah. And I'm not sure when that'll happen, if that happens on screen or off screen, but for now, this will be Tolhi signing out. Later, guys.